Everybody, Kevin Harned Ryan Hoke here. It's a Monday, April 1st evening, and we say happy April Fools to you, but this is no joke. We are tracking weather across the country. In fact, when we come up, I can show you what it looks like over in Oklahoma, just to show you how far away we're tracking these storms. There's K4, the NBC station out of Oklahoma City. So they've got their helicopter up tracking these storms. We're looking at their feeds. We're looking at the weather data, and it promises to be a very active night tonight and an active day tomorrow.
That's right. It's a 2-round severe weather threat. You know, we always get on edge whenever there's any sort of overnight severe thunderstorm activity here. We are no stranger to that lately. So this is one of those periods to make sure you've got a NOAA weather radio and the Wave weather app. You need to have a way to get woken up early tomorrow morning if these severe thunderstorms pose a tornado threat to your location, Kevin.
Yeah, I see a lot of folks jumping in. We're going to get to some of your questions. We see you, we hear you, we will address a lot of the questions. I want to be able to go through the data first, and this will come with a caveat because we'll get new data coming in as we approach the 11 o'clock hour. So by 11 o'clock tonight, we'll have some new data to talk about. But let's just jump to our graphics here. I want to be able to point out what we're watching. Obviously, we've had the alert day in place for several days now. We knew last week saying, okay, we're probably going to have to flag Monday, Tuesday as alert days as we sort of hone in on the timing. Sometimes it all comes down to precision, and oftentimes that doesn't become clear until we in some cases, and this will be one of those, until the day of. So getting precise is not always easy days in advance.
And that is because the storms that'll be coming through super late tonight, super early Tuesday morning, will impact how the evolution of the afternoon and evening round of storms tomorrow goes. So we've got round one and round two. Round two, Kevin, is dependent on round one.
Yeah, no question. So when we time this out, and if you've been watching throughout the afternoon, we took the theme of round one, round two, and that's the way we've sort of been explaining what's going to happen. First of all, what's happening now, which there's very little on our radar locally, so we don't have much. These are just isolated downpours. We had severe weather, extreme northern Kentucky toward Covington, had a couple other thunderstorms that were strong around the Bloomington area. These are just isolated thunderstorms along the warm front. And that's all we're going to see. We're capped. So our thunderstorms aren't exploding over top of us tonight. Not yet. Now, what we're watching will be round one. And that comes in from the west, moves across southern Indiana, sinks to the south overnight. That's between that 2 a.m. time frame, and we'll just take it to 10 a.m. Probably won't last quite that long, but we'll say 2 to 10. That will be the time frame for round one. Comes with some very heavy rain, lots of lightning, the possibility for some isolated tornadoes and hail, and certainly some wind. So wind, heavy rain, round one.
Round two has the bigger tornado threat of the two rounds here, just because of how the afternoon timing of the instability, the dynamics at play, the very fast winds aloft, all of this is going to be coming together, especially in Ohio, just north and east of us, where they have a fairly rare scenario there that they're going to see as we head throughout the afternoon tomorrow. Now, we're going to be on the edge of that here, but should we get unstable enough, should the storms form just west of us as we head throughout the afternoon tomorrow, we're going to be in that problem zone as well. These could be supercellular thunderstorms, rotating individual thunderstorms that pose a pretty decent tornado threat. And we'll show you some of those maps in a few minutes.
Yeah, and this is important because especially if we can really reset the atmosphere, that means clear the skies for a period of time, allow that instability to build back in where those thunderstorms would have full chances to grow and really root themselves to where we could have those supercell rotating storms ahead of the cold front. So tomorrow, if we destabilize as a two-pronged severe event, one in the afternoon where we have the individual supercells and then one along the front that would be a little more linear and wind focused. So that's what we're looking at when we talk about the two rounds of storms, one overnight tonight and then another one, which could contain a couple of pushes of storms tomorrow afternoon. So let's talk about the severe risks. When we look at that today, along I-64 and north, we were in the enhanced area. You say, well, we haven't had a thing today. Not yet. This takes us into the evening hours tonight, and that's important to know.
Yeah, and these severe weather outlooks, they cut off at around 7 o'clock in the morning. So this really goes until 7 a.m. tomorrow, that today map that you see on there. So this is for the overnight and early Tuesday round of storms. Round 2 is represented by the Tuesday, the middle map that you see here. And that, again, is enhanced, sort of that brown shade, if you will. And notice that covers almost all of our counties except like 4. And they're even in eastern Jefferson County, Indiana, is a little bit of that moderate risk, or a 4 out of 5. Last time we saw moderate risk here in the Louisville area, which we're not seeing, by the way, was back in 2018. Just to give you a sense of how kind of rare that is to see a threat level that high around these parts.
Well, we haven't had a lot of severe weather, extreme severe weather in recent years.
Right.
I mean, there have been some where we've just barely had any warnings at all. So to have a year like we've had so far, which has been decently active and certainly launching into a scenario where you're going to hear about a multi-day severe weather outbreak across the country, all leading up to what is the 50th anniversary of April 3rd of 74. Lots of people's minds are like, okay, well, what's going to happen? So again, we're just going through some of the data. Let's talk about what we have at play. Lots of moisture, strong winds today from the south, pumping in plenty of Gulf moisture. Our dew points are high. We've got it. We're going to have it tomorrow. Wind shear, very high. Wind shear is a change in both wind speed and or direction as you go up into the atmosphere. It gives us the tumbling effect. All we need then is something to push it up. That comes with lift. We have both. We have wind shear, which is extreme, and we also have lift, which is coming from the front, and the area of low pressure that's going to our north.
So there are going to be storms. This isn't going to be one of those scenarios where we get gapped and there's like 0 thunderstorms. Because of the source of lift being the front, something's got to give here. And it's going to be thunderstorms that we see overnight, and then that second round hinging upon the first round tomorrow between noon and 7 p.m. That wind shear being very high, that's the critical part for the tornado threat being a 2 out of 5 that you see here, followed by hail. But the wind and flooding threats, Kevin, those we've ticked up to a 3 out of 5, and the flooding could be a big problem, especially along US 50 in southern Indiana, based on some of the latest maps.
And that's going to be especially true overnight tonight, early tomorrow. So the heavy rain threat comes in tonight. This will be training from west to east, just on the sort of the boundary, that warm front that sits to our north. I'm going to get to the maps in a second. So we're just sort of explaining it to you here, our threats. Flooding will be a real threat. By tomorrow, these storms are moving super fast, and we won't have to worry about as much in terms of flooding. It's tomorrow morning that has the wind and the flood issue. By tomorrow afternoon, that should transition more to a wind and tornado issue for us. Hail is going to be mixed into both of those, by the way. Let's talk about, before the severe weather gets here, how to get these alerts. One of those is through the Wave Weather app. We talk about it all the time. We spend a great deal of time in the app so we can give you information. Everything that's in the app you can tap on. It gives you even more explanation. So however deep you want to go, you can get that information. That's one way. Everybody should have multiple ways. We feel like every home should have a NOAA weather radio. It's sort of your first line of defense in these storms. The alert comes out from the Weather Service. It gives you an immediate warning. You turn the television on, you go to your weather app, and then you have the ability to see what's happening in your neighborhood. And by all means, don't forget, if the power goes out, you have to have the devices charged.
Right. So make sure that you have things like battery backups for your phones. You know, those little batteries you can clip onto the back of your phones these days. Maybe charge those up just in case you happen to lose power overnight and you need to watch the Wave Weather Now stream to get that latest severe weather coverage, because that can happen. Losing power in the middle of a tornado warning, not good.
Correct. We're going to look at temperatures here. 77. We hit 81 today.
Yeah, 81 was the high temperature today. 85 was the record to beat set back in 1963. I've got that off the top of my head from the 7 o'clock news there. But yeah, 4 degrees away from a record today. And all of that warmth, that heat energy, that's just going to kind of fuel the thunderstorms, that residual heating as we go throughout overnight into early tomorrow.
Yeah, and so the warmth is there. The moisture is there. The dew points give us the ability to measure that as a temperature. So when we're in the 60s, especially mid 60s, upper 60s in some cases today, that's a juicy atmosphere that we're dealing with.
Yeah, especially by April standards around here. Like, this is typically like late May. We're starting to get these kind of juicy numbers here. Anything above 60 is like, okay, plenty of moisture for severe weather, right?
Now, the good news is the warm front's just off to our north, so we have nothing to worry about this evening. There's nothing out there. The boundaries to our north. We're watching what's going on out to our west, and that's what eventually will be moving in our direction. And as you can see, with just the radar and the warnings on the map, I can put the surface features on. We have that stationary boundary, or what I've been calling the warm front to our north, the cold front, areas of low pressure out to our west. That is the show that we'll watch move in our direction tonight, especially what you see across parts of Missouri and now moving into central Illinois.
And what you don't see are the winds aloft, and they are very fast with this system. And that's why we're going to have enough wind energy to power up the damaging wind and the tornado threat both, especially as we head throughout tomorrow afternoon when all of that's kind of maximized right over us and especially into Ohio there. So big time potential for a good chunk of the central and eastern part of the country here this multi-day severe weather threat. Look at all the storm reports already, and we're just early into this.
Yeah, and most of these are hail reports. We've had some wind reports, but it's been mainly hail reports back out there. But again, as the low-level jet ramps up and we really start to push in the winds, you're going to start to get more wind reports and then the potential for even tornado reports overnight tonight, mainly out to the west of us, okay? Let's just dive in. We had the Storm Prediction Center issue a couple of what they call mesoscale discussions. And this talks about what is upcoming. And you can see the one that arcs into parts of southern Indiana. They're talking about those training supercells. And this is expected to continue along the warm front into western Indiana. Those training supercells pose two risks: one, wind and the potential for tornadoes. But in addition to that, frequent and heavy rainfall.
And that rainfall is our concern for the overnight. And that's why I especially set the US 50 corridor, because in your head, if you draw a line eastward from where that polygon is, where the training supercell threat is, you hit places like Seymour and North Vernon. And those are going to be the first places to encounter that flash flooding threat very early Tuesday morning. And that will start to march down toward the Ohio River and I-64 as we get closer to that morning commute time frame.
The other mesoscale discussion that they've issued for a good chunk of Oklahoma down toward the metroplex of Dallas and Fort Worth, and that just is a severe weather threat that continues. They already have a tornado watch in place there, and they're just saying large hail remains a big threat. We're talking 2 to 3 inch in diameter hail.
That's huge.
So this is upwards of baseball-sized hail that they're dealing with.
2.75 inch diameter. That's baseball.
Yeah. That's what they're dealing with. Now, when we get closer to the warm front, you can see the flash flood warnings that have already come out in central Illinois, number of severe thunderstorm warnings across parts of Missouri. And this is approaching St. Louis. They've had one big storm move through. This one's showing some signs of what could be a hook on that. It's not a tornado warning, but a severe thunderstorm warning. You can see the rotation, so wouldn't be surprised to see that one be upgraded to a tornado warning, perhaps.
Yeah, and perhaps the reason why it is starting to spin like that and it looks so healthy is because there's nothing south of it. So it has all that warm, moist air feed right into it. I say thunderstorms, especially like supercells, are like vacuum cleaners. They suck up warm, moist air. They put down cold, rain-cooled air, so that inflow of air is very clean.
And when we look at the hail tracker on that, you can see some hail falling out of that, and that will likely continue to grow in size as well. Temperature is very warm, so a lot of it is melting as it gets a little closer to us. So let's talk about what it's going to happen for us. We've sort of gone over the general features of what threats exist for tonight and tomorrow. What we're looking at now is the future cast. We're dry through the evening hours, so find your location on the map, and we'll walk you through the timeline. 10, 11 o'clock, dry. Thunderstorms around 2, 3 o'clock in the morning start to move in from Illinois into central southern Indiana. We see that sink a little bit further to the south as the morning wears on, arriving in Louisville sometime around or just before the morning rush hour, 5, 6, 7 a.m.
And that's a problem because so many folks will be trying to get out and about. I know JCPS is on spring break, but a lot of school systems have either had their spring break or are not having it just yet. So there will be some buses in some counties out on the roads tomorrow. So keep an eye on the wave weather app for the radar early tomorrow. Notice that as we head toward that 7, 8 o'clock time frame, storms are starting to move to the south and east. We'll start to see that lull try to develop as we move toward mid-morning, but this run of Futurecast here kind of keeps these storms forming even through the midday hour, just kind of off and on.
And the big question is, if that happens, that would allow cloud cover to exist, rain to exist, a cooler atmosphere, a cloudier atmosphere, and that would help sort of squash the intensity of the afternoon storms tomorrow. if that happens. Now, this is only one piece of data. Some of the data shows some clearing. And if that happens, that's adding instability. We really won't know what will happen until tomorrow morning and these storms arrive and we can say, all right, we see where they are and we know where they're going. And after they exit, we're going to either clear out or we're not. But for now, it's tough to tell because it's very much unknown in the data. These storms will gradually fade, but then in the afternoon, they should rebound back. And we will see additional storms develop out ahead of the cold front. These would be the supercell storms that we have to keep a very close eye on. Those would be the tornado-producing storms if they happen. And then the line itself, broken, you can see it out toward Jasper and Bedford, will move through by early evening. And that would be the front itself. And behind that, the severe weather threat ends. And we wind up seeing it move to our east. Cooler temperatures would then invade for Wednesday. With highs in the 40s and possibly even a few snowflakes. Yeah,
we're not kidding. This is not an April Fool's joke. We do have some snowflakes in the Wednesday forecast. It's not a huge deal, but it's a big deal only because the calendar says April. It's supposed to be spring, right? It does snow in April around here.
All right. I know a lot of people are asking about your location. So we've simplified this the best we can. So walk through this with us. Notice the outlined areas. If you're in southern Indiana, across parts of Lawrence, Orange, Washington, Jackson, over to Jennings, Scott County, Jefferson County, Ripley County, Switzerland County, Monroe County. I'm throwing counties that aren't even in our viewing area in there. You can see that outlined area. This is between now and 2 a.m. You have a chance for some isolated storms to move in as they come in out of Illinois that could be strong. This is a smaller severe risk because it's near the warm front. It's to the north of Louisville. It's not going to impact much of the viewing area besides the folks that are in the northern parts of our viewing area. But those that it impacts could have the potential for that wind and hail.
Right. So that's going to be zone or time, I should say, number one, between now and 2 a.m. As we advance forward, you'll notice that more of us become involved with these storms. It's between 2 a.m. and 10 a.m. Line of storms arrives. We're starting to talk about flooding issues. We're starting to talk about wind and hail issues with this. Yes, there is a tornado threat with this as well. I don't think it would be as great as the afternoon round of storms, though. We'll keep that, of course, in mind for those folks who are going to be going through both rounds of storms. Yes, you, of course, do have the potential to see some of the severe weather from both the morning round and the afternoon round. So this is more of an equal opportunity time for storms early Tuesday morning. That's going to be round number one of thunderstorms here.
We'll call that round one. We assume the atmosphere will recharge, and we get round number two. And this comes in, again, for a good chunk of our viewing area, but especially along and east of I-65. The potential for this would include those supercell thunderstorms out ahead of the line. That would be during the afternoon, anywhere between midday on through the afternoon, early evening hours. So we'll say between noon and 7 p.m. on this next line. Some of the strength and intensity of this will be dependent from if we see that instability develop through the morning hours. So it depends what happens in the morning round of storms. Will we get those clouds out of here? Will we wind up getting that rain out of here? Will we see the sunshine? And if any or all of those happen, then the energy level in the atmosphere will go up. That would increase our tornado threat. And even if we stay cloudy, we still have a threat for wind and hail and obviously some heavy rainfall. But it would increase our tornado threat drastically if we start to destabilize anymore.
So that's kind of the 1-2 punch of these thunderstorms. Again, this is going to be overnight between 2 a.m. and 10 a.m. That's round one. Round two, between noon tomorrow and 7 p.m. tomorrow. Highest tornado threat is that second round. This is another way that we've thought of to show this timing here, kind of with a bar graph, if you will. Whenever you see these red bars, that's when severe weather is possible. You'll notice that round number one and round number two, both labeled on there, and both of those storm chances are pretty high, Kevin.
Yeah.
So we're going to get a lot of rain tomorrow. Most folks are going to see these storms.
And I think that's true. Now, will everybody see severe weather? No, impossible to say that, but the chance for severe weather will be there. The chance that everybody would see some showers and thunderstorms is very great. And the fact is there's going to be a number of active storms because the energy's there. We have all of the components that we really need for severe weather. Just now it's a matter of measuring how strong they will be and exactly where. And even this short of distance in advance is impossible to do with great certainty. So that's one way to look at it. I'm going to show just a couple of maps that when we've looked at the maps, a couple of the raw data outputs. And on this is what we call the high resolution model. This just gives some indication. I wanted to just point out the CAPE on this. And you can see that we crank that up tomorrow during the morning hours, and then we ease it back. So this would bank on a mainly cloudy sky building in with little in the way of recovery for the afternoon. And the cell numbers point to that too, bouncing them back. Of course, we only go out till 2:30 tomorrow, so we don't have the full scope of data in. But what we're looking at here would be that morning robust round, and we're starting to see some energy come back into the afternoon time frame, 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
And that's the risk we run tomorrow, is if we can get that thunderstorm energy, that CAPE, if you will, to build back in, that's when we would see those storms fire off in the afternoon. And those could very well be Great Plains style supercells, a broken line of them, marching eastbound through a good chunk of our counties tomorrow, and being especially problematic in areas north and east of us where that highest tornado threat looks to be for tomorrow. What you're seeing on your screen now is our brand new 10-day earliest alert. If you haven't seen us on TV, this is kind of our new look of things here, and you can see the alert day is in focus for Tuesday.
And not only that, but I'll walk you through this, then we're going to get to a lot of your questions here. It's 8:30, and we'll spend a lot of time just making sure you have the information you need. Obviously, behind this system, we cool down in a big way. We mentioned the fact that we could see some snowflakes. You see those on Wednesday mixed with some light rain showers. Temperatures are in the 40s. So this is a powerful cold front that's going to be moving in. We'll slowly clear it out and warm it back into the 50s and low 60s by the weekend. And then, of course, a lot of folks paying attention to Monday. Why? Well, it's April the 8th, big eclipse day. What does this mean for us? What's the latest weather show? Well, it does show at least a few clouds nearby. So there's still some concern. Will we see the drizzle? Will we see the clouds? We sort of have to get this front past us before we can reset and see how fast the pattern will go after this.
Right. There's some squabbling in the data tonight over this. This is the European model we're showing here. It has a bit more of an optimistic look to things. The GFS or American model flat out has a ton of clouds and even some thunderstorms rolling through during the eclipse. So we will start to fine tune this as we go through the week. Nothing is set in stone yet at 6.5 days out from the great American eclipse.
Yeah, a lot of people want to know the time of that, of course. So we go into partial eclipse just after 1:30, and then we'll work our way into the total eclipse around that 3 o'clock hour, and then out of it by 4:20, I think, 4:26. Like so it's just a general time because it's different in each specific location.
And if you're looking for those times, you can watch Wave Weather Now. We've got a video on there. It's about a minute and a half long that kind of goes through all the times and the information you need to know. And if you're watching us on social media, that's wave3.com/weather now to find our weather live stream. It's always on 24/7.
All right, let's take a few questions. I'll let you pop that up. I'm going to pull the radar back up so we can see what's happening out to the west. You'll see that.
We've got a lot of folks like May in here who are nervous, who are scared, who are anxious about these thunderstorms tonight and tomorrow. Unfortunately, this is a fact of life around here in wave country. You know, it is April. We are getting ready to go into the 50th anniversary of the 1974 tornado outbreak. Some folks have been asking, will this be like 1974? Jameson here says, no, it's not going to be like 1974. No. And you're right there. Some folks are asking, what happened in 1974? I've had a couple of those comments here tonight. And it was a very, very bad tornado outbreak that not only affected us, but places like Xenia, Ohio, down toward Tennessee. And we're going to be sharing more about that outbreak coming up on Wednesday during the anniversary.
Well, and our hope was, as we planned for the 50th anniversary, and our plans are still there, but it kind of depends on what happens with the weather tomorrow. But Brian will be in Hanover. I'm going to be over in Brandenburg taking part in some of the ceremonies there. Here in Louisville, they moved their ceremonies from Cherokee Park to Metro Hall, where they'll be remembering the 50th anniversary. So we're taking part in a number of things that day and remembrances. And of course, we have stories from way back then to share with folks. But it was a intense intense day in tornadoes that, you can imagine 50 years ago, the technology wasn't nearly as what it is now. Wave had one of the few television radars, and it was taken out of an old Delta plane.
Yeah, it was downtown, mounted on the side of a building.
Yeah, it was mounted on the tower right here, at the station. And so we were able, but the station was able to see that storm. But of course, it was one of the few that they ever saw the hook on because it just wasn't that high of resolution. But Tom, I had a chance to sit down with him who was working that day, Tom Wills, and he explained what it was like in this building and just sort of the sobering moments of afterwards seeing the damage and knowing what really happened. But it was a day where 148 tornadoes rampaged the United States. Xenia, Ohio was the hardest hit with, at the time, was an F6, and then back to an F5. They decided, well, that's as high as we'll go as an F5. And right behind that was Brandenburg. So Brandenburg was, I think, the second strongest tornadoes of that day. Yep. Anyway, it was just a really rough day. Over 30 people died in the Brandenburg area. Over 50 some in our viewing area passed away. That storm went right across the city from the fairgrounds right into Cherokee Park and on up toward Northfield. Hanover College was hit hard. Number of places. We'll talk more about that later in the week.
Yeah. Lake on YouTube brings up a good point. We can't cover every single minute location in our area here and give you a detailed minute-by-minute forecast. There's two of us, and we have an array of fantastic weather computers, but we simply don't have the time nor the resources to put that together for every zip code in the 34 counties that we serve here. So yes, bear with us. No,
when we're replaced with AI, it'll happen, right?
We'll see what happens with that. But just, something going into tomorrow, Kevin, is folks need to know where they live. They need to know what county they live in. So when they're watching our live stream or when they're watching, Wave on air, if we say, hey, tornado warning for X county, and if that's your county, you need to also know where in that county you live. So be aware of where you live, because that may indeed help you out tomorrow.
Yeah, no question about that. And that should be the case anytime. But the fact is, if we have severe weather, we're going to be here. We're going to be telling you about it. So you just simply have to keep checking in on occasion and see where we're at through the day. This is one of those days where you just want to be weather aware. Pay attention. I see some comments rolling past, oh, the hype machine is on. Oh, you're scaring people. Oh, there's no threats. Here's the deal. We're going to be here regardless because this is what we do. And we're on here because we're tracking the storms out to the west. We have the opportunity to see storms tonight. We're telling you that. So you have to be the ones to decide when you check back in, when you want to get an update. And the fact is, either the Wave Weather app is going to be updated. If it's immediate or emergent, we're going to be on live and you can tune in then. But it's up to you, really. It falls in the hands of the viewer and the user to determine how much information you want. It's out there. We're cranking it out all the time. So to say things like that really is unfair and really speaks to the knowledge that you have about how it works.
Okay, severe thunderstorm watch scrolling across the bottom of Wave Television here for Jackson and Jennings County. If I can read that very small font, I think that says either 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning is when that expires. So it does clip those counties by the watch box, but it includes both of those counties at 3 a.m. There you go. In totality there. So Jackson and Jennings scrolling on the bottom of Wave, just so you know that severe thunderstorm watch has come out. That's kind of the very southern extent of that first, kind of overnight storm threat up there in the Indianapolis area. And it just barely clips some of our counties there. As Kevin's panning around the radar, you can see some warnings just west of the Wabash Valley there.
So that warning or watch is just now coming out. And the reason is because they have those warnings that have fired across far eastern Illinois. As that settles down toward the Indianapolis area, it will travel along that front, could move into the northern parts of Lawrence, Jackson, Jennings. But again, the watch comes right up to it. So.
Yeah, Dave and Gene say, thank you for adjusting your mic. He was typing over here. I was like, what's going on? But his mic wasn't set high enough. So a lot of folks were like, we can't hear you.
It was on. It just was low, like zero.
Just hard to hear. So, yeah.
I can't, even wearing the earpiece, I couldn't hardly hear it because your mic is on and so is this.
I could hear you, but I wasn't sure how loud it was. It's hard for us to kind of tell how things are.
Appreciate the feedback.
Thank you for the comments. We appreciate that. Let's see. Todd's like, snowflakes? Did Brian Good pay us to say that? No.
Yes.
He didn't pay us. We're paying him. Hold on. Let's see. Scott on YouTube is asking, what weather graphic software do you use? We use Max from the Weather Company, formerly IBM. So if you're familiar with that, That's what we're using here. Augmented reality and all sorts of fun stuff we can do with it here. Let's see. We've got some more comments rolling in here. Let's see. A lot of folks are asking about their individual locations. We've kind of covered that. We can't do every single thing there. Todd's like, hey, severe thunderstorm watch issue. We just went over that. So fantastic. You're on the button there. Let's see. Should E-Town be concerned tonight for severe storms? Yes, everybody within the sound of our voice here should have at least a little bit of concern.
It would be late tonight. Anywhere in E-Town, Kentucky would be well after 2 a.m. So we're talking a late night, early morning round of storms that will be moving in, gradually weakening. And that's the timing question. How fast will they weaken as they push in? Here's Brooke asking a question.
Yeah, she says, got bad storm anxiety. You guys do so much to help me feel level-headed and calm. Thanks for all you do. That's what we're here for, to give you the confidence to move forward with your plans or, with the safety measures you need to take here.
Well, and that's sort of the mantra that we've had all along is, we're not here to scare you. We actually aren't here to hype it up, contrary to some people's belief in the room. But we are here to just let you know what the data looks like. We're here because we think it's important and that there is at least a chance that we're going to have severe weather 2 times, one overnight tonight, another one tomorrow afternoon. Determining how bad that will be is still yet to be determined. But for now, all signs point to at least the threats that would be there. And that's just what we have to watch. And hour by hour, we're combing through the data to say, here's where we stand. We're either lessening the threat or we're increasing it or we're staying where we're at. And that's the important thing to note is we're watching it. We're updating it. We're watching it. We're updating it. And we'll do that every hour from now until it's out of here, just because of the real potential that it has.
Woody's asking a question that I've seen echoed elsewhere. With the storms moving through early tomorrow morning, what about schools and colleges that happen to be in session? Should we not venture out to class? What about kids at the bus stop for those school systems that are in tomorrow? What's the deal, Kev? What should we do?
Yeah, and here's the deal. The school systems make those rules. Sometimes they consult with us even on opinions of how bad it's going to be. But we're not here to give direction to people's ability, of what they want to do or feel comfortable doing, because that really crosses the line of what our job is. We're here just to give the information. There is going to be the risk of strong storms tomorrow morning. Heavy rain, lightning, almost a guarantee. Severe weather, possible. That's tomorrow morning. Tomorrow, later in the afternoon and evening hours, early evening hours, depending on what happens in the morning, would be another threat for strong to severe storms. Those would likely be a little more scattered on the onset. So, tough calls that some of the schools have to make.
Okay, so May is asking here about her individual location, but she brings up a good point here. She's like, is there any chance that storms will weaken as they approach Jefferson County, Indiana? We could ask that for any, location. But what's the bust potential here? I think a lot of folks are wanting to know, what is the chance that the severe weather doesn't happen?
Yeah, there is a chance, especially as we're watching it develop now. So we'll have a pretty decent idea late tonight what's going to move in our direction. And we'll be able to look at the energy available that it taps into, both in terms of moisture content, temperature, speed of the storms. We'll know what the overnight looks like for tomorrow morning. And we pretty much have a decent picture of that. I really do think we have the ability to see some very heavy rain overnight, early tomorrow, the thunder, the lightning that accompanies that, some gusty winds, isolated tornado threat. I think that's what we're looking at through tomorrow morning. So I wouldn't be surprised to see additional watches get issued. So the way this would work in the warning process would be we flag the alert day as far in advance as we can to say, hey, we're watching this time frame, which last week happened to be Monday and Tuesday. The alert days were in place. Today, Storm Prediction Center outlines us. We're now under a watch for part of the area. Next would come warnings from the local National Weather Service office, and then we'll see how it unfolds. But I wouldn't be surprised to see additional watches issued into the overnight, which is why it's critical that you have a way to get the warnings and the watches. NOAA Weather Radio, Wave Weather app. We're obviously doing it on TV and on our social platforms, but I do think we have that chance overnight tonight. Now, the bust potential may not exist for tonight because I think we're underway already. For tomorrow afternoon, the bust potential would come with seeing this larger cluster of storms go a little bit further north than south. That would give a higher ability of instability. So that would really up our severe chances in the afternoon tomorrow. But the bust would come if we stay cloudy or see that rain linger tomorrow morning into the early afternoon. That would provide a lack of instability or more stability to the atmosphere.
Dovetailing off of that discussion here, Logan on Facebook is asking, is the tornado threat larger for our area tonight, or is it for tomorrow afternoon? And there's two different rounds of storms and types of storms at play here. So really, the afternoon threat tomorrow for the tornadoes, in my opinion, looks to be a bit higher, just because we'll have more of those ingredients at play. It'll happen during a time of day when tornadoes are often more likely, but don't sleep on that tornado threat for the early morning hours of tomorrow as well. They can happen in these lines of storms pushing through. They just wouldn't be as long-lived or as intense as what could happen tomorrow afternoon there.
Yeah. Catherine's asking a question here. I've just flagged it. I have a flight at 6 a.m. Do you think there could be delays? I do. I think there could be some delays tomorrow morning, because at that point, we're going to be in the heart of these storms moving across the area. Airliners don't like to fly through thunderstorms. Anytime you get a storm above 30,000 feet, that contains some very strong wind. Some of the stronger storms up to 40, 50,000 feet, those can rip a plane apart.
And the hail, too. Lots of hail damage to the windshield, to the nose cone. No good. So, yes, delays are possible, if not likely, tomorrow morning.
All right. Let's see. What else do we have here? Laura's just saying thank you.
Thank you, Laura.
We appreciate everybody jumping on. So many of your names we are familiar with because you've been on. And if it's the first time for you here, obviously Brian does one of these every morning, so it doesn't matter what the weather is. He's in here giving the weather update on all of our social platforms. We stream anytime there's a risk of severe weather during the evening hours. So Ryan and I are here doing the same thing, just answering some of your questions.
Indeed. Samuel's asking, did you recently get new graphics? Yes, we did get new graphics. You've seen those this week. We debuted them last week, I should say, on Monday there. So, yes, kind of a fresh new look. Let's see if we've got any other questions. Good question here from Storm Chaser Brody on YouTube. How far west do you think the storms will fire up tomorrow evening? And that is the $1 million question here. The farther west they form, the more chance we would see severe weather within our counties there.
Yeah, and a lot of that is the dependence of where the boundary sets up overnight tonight, tomorrow morning, as we fade the storms away tomorrow and see what boundaries are left behind. That would promote additional storm development later in the afternoon tomorrow.
We've got a user on YouTube called Exodus here. He's asking, how are lightning strikes triangulated on a weather app? Is it via cell phone microphones? No, there is a network of lightning detectors across the United States from Vaisala, which is a private company. They charge money for it, but they are able to triangulate the lightning strikes off of their detectors. And those detectors are on the tops of buildings. They're on cell towers. And because of that network, we're able to see that, boop, there was a lightning strike at exactly 2:52 p.m., 1.3 miles away from your house. Pretty cool stuff. You can see that live lightning data in the Wave weather app and on TV. Of course, our weather graphics and our weather app has that lightning data in there. So yeah, great question. I was just talking about that with someone over the weekend. So fantastic question there.
We have a few tornado warnings that have popped back out there north of Oklahoma City, just north of Springfield. We keep our eyes on a number of chasers during severe weather, and obviously we're a part of a large television group, 113 stations. This is coming out of Oklahoma City, so I'm not sure exactly of their location, but you can see that they have severe weather just off to the north and northeast of Oklahoma City. So jumping back on the road there, they're in some heavy rain. Not a place you want to be if you have a tornado, rain wrapped. We have in our Max computer the ability to show tornado I guess, energy or potential. So Ryan's going to pull some of that up. And as we pull those maps up, we'll be able to see those for us for tomorrow. So tonight, all of the storms back out to the west of us. Let me just pop us back up while we're working on that. And you'll see that pop in. While he's doing that, I'll jump into just a couple more questions here. Not going to jump into exact locations because that's just too tough. Here's one where it says, if the sun comes out tomorrow.
Cue the Annie music.
Yeah, exactly. Tomorrow. Does that mean it will be worse? And the answer is yes. That does mean it would be worse. That adds that instability that we've talked about. Now, here's the tornado potential for tonight and tomorrow.
And let me walk you through this here. So this is just after midnight. You start to see it ramping up, and it really gets to a point where it becomes an issue, 2, 3 a.m. So this aligns with our timing here. You'll see it is an elevated tornado potential at that time. And of course, this is model data here. So as we march through the morning commute, it starts to press southward toward the Ohio River as that line of storms presses southward at that time. So it becomes a bit of a problem, to say the least, as we head toward that 6, 7 o'clock time frame in the morning. Notice we get into a lull because the storms are kind of pressing through, the atmosphere is resetting, and then as I advance it forward just a little bit more here, notice it amps up again, closer to midday. Boom, look at this. Now, this is a problem. After noontime or so, we really start to see that tornado potential that it's kind of just like the culmination of all the ingredients necessary to make a tornado. Those ingredients start to become elevated to high as we head toward 1, 2, 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. That does not mean it is storming with a tornado at this time. It just means the ingredients are kind of sitting there. It's kind of like all the ingredients for a cake are sitting on the counter. Well, we need something to make that cake for us, and that would be the front starting to press through, these storms starting to take advantage of these ingredients. Look at that purple. That's some of the highest that we've seen around here in quite some time up near Covington.
Yeah.
Now you understand why the highest tornado threat,
The moderate risk.
that 4 out of 5 risk, is up towards Cincinnati, Dayton, and Columbus tomorrow. Then as we press forward even more, we get toward like 7, 8 o'clock. We still have the ingredients in place for tornadoes, but notice they are starting to fade with the setting sun, the cold front pushing through, pushing them out of our region. And this whole thing just kind of shuts down after especially 8 or 9 o'clock tomorrow, but it could be as early as 7 as these storms will continue to rake across our area and push that out of here. So that is the tornado ingredients.
And we just have to keep in mind that this is based on the one model data. This is assuming we don't see the sun come back out tomorrow. It's assuming we stay cloudy with a chance of rain because this is the HER model.
It is.
So we're looking at that time frame, which this goes back to the data earlier this evening. So we're not looking at the 0Z data yet.
Correct, because that comes in an hour-ish.
That would give us a better snapshot of what we hope to capture, because we're going to have a lot more data from the weather balloons within that data, as we talked about earlier, to really try to get a view of what's happening for late tonight, early tomorrow. This is the hail potential.
Right. I finally got this to load up here. Took it a minute here, but this is a bit more of a muddy sort of piece of data, but it gives you the sense of what is the maximum hail size we could get should a thunderstorm be in the environment here. And you'll see it's quarter size all the way through the overnight hours. Starts to go down as those storms press south of the Ohio River. But watch what happens tomorrow as the atmosphere tries to recover. And unfortunately, it only goes out to 2:30 p.m. here, it looks like. But we've got enough data to at least see that ping pong ball size hail and even some of that golf ball size hail, that lighter purple, the very left-hand. There we go. Left-hand side of your screen there. That's hard to do.
Over here by me.
Over here.
Right there.
Right. That's as the atmosphere starts to recover and that second line of storms tomorrow afternoon tries to get going. That's the environment it will have to take advantage of. So that's the hail. We've showed you the tornado. These are kind of the ingredients, the potential should a thunderstorm take advantage of those ingredients. What could happen here?
All right, back to just a couple of questions. Chris is always, maybe a weather enthusiast. We like to call ourselves weather geeks, weather nerds. Chris is a big weather fanatic as well. He says, if the low-level jet ramps up for a few hours, how does that influence the hodographs? And when we're looking at the hodographs earlier, you could see the S-shaped curve in those, especially areas just out to our west, north and west. So the increase of the low-level jet, you can draw it on there, Ryan, if you want to just show kind of the way the winds in the upper levels are working. But the fact is, it is going to add that motion as the front gets closer tomorrow just for complete spin. So everything will be spinning tomorrow. There's no doubt in my mind that if we can get into the afternoon tomorrow, we're going to wind up with a tornado watch. There's no reason for the severe thunderstorm watch because the potential for the rotation is it's just obviously going to be there.
And what I've drawn on here, the two arrows coming from south to north, that's like the low-level jet. That'd be the direction basically out of the south, feeds moisture into the atmosphere, the low levels here. And then that second arrow is kind of showing very roughly where the upper-level winds would be. And you can see how the directions are different, and that's what causes that spin in the atmosphere.
When their speeds are drastically different, too.
That speed shear.
creates
Yep.
the roll.
So you have directional and speed shear at play here.
And on the photograph, you can see that. We have no good way to show the photographs through this system, but Chris, if you're familiar with those,
the photograph would look something kind of like that. It's a big old curvature thing. If you're a super weather nerd, you know what we're talking about.
And if you looked at it from the side, you could almost see it make that S, which you never want to see.
Yeah, not a good sign at all.
All right, let's jump in. When will be your next update? I always appreciate people wanting to know when the next update comes. So thank you, Madeline. We'll be on at 11 o'clock tonight. Obviously, before then, we'll be in our app updating everything. New data will be coming in within the hour here. So we'll be able to update the weather app with some new information. And that should help give us a little more precise timing and maybe a little bit of information on the intensity for the storms that will move in later on tonight.
And of course, we'll have updates overnight on wave and on wave weather now as necessary as warnings are issued too.
Yeah, we should mention that we're going to be here all night. Tawana's coming in early. I'm going to stay late. Ryan's coming in late tomorrow, so he can stay even later tomorrow night. Brian's coming in early. So we've got our schedules to where we always have at least two people here, making sure that we're able to get the information out. Because sometimes we find ourselves in all the platforms that we have to cover, that it's not always easy to do with just one person. You're still trying to make a forecast for the next 10 days. You're still trying to make sure that if warnings come out, you can get them out everywhere. And that's not always easy to do, as well as make phone calls and do the things that we have to do during severe weather.
And at some point, we also have to sleep too. So we have to manage all of that. So we've got folks on all these sort of rolling shifts here. And that's what makes us unique in that we can kind of sustain the coverage for the entire night and the entire day tomorrow if we have to make sure that you guys know exactly what's going on.
Let's see. Annie says, we get hit a lot, and I can't go to sleep until I know if we are okay. And I think the idea there is, Amy, I think it is, that's a comfort thing. That's not something, I mean, we're going to have these storms overnight. It's impossible to tell you exactly how bad they're going to be. Obviously, we still have warnings out to the west, and until that starts to fade, we still have the ability with the atmosphere that we have in place to see some of those strong winds. And because of the atmospheric conditions in terms of shear, we still have the ability to see those rotate. So I know we've taken a lot of phone calls today with people that have intense anxiety over storms. My grandmother was one of those people, which is the whole reason how I probably got into the weather enterprise in itself was, I mean, she'd get the holy water out. She was scared to death of storms. And consequently, I was too. And anyway, as time went on, eventually I learned the more you know and can comfort yourself, get a weather radio. That's what I will say. If you don't have one, get one. 99.8% of the time, you're going to hear that go off before there's any threat nearby. So
it makes it easy. It'll wake you up when there's a problem. We have a question from Kristen here I've just put up. Why do we so often end up with severe weather coming through during the overnight hours? And that's a great question because it feels like the last, 2-3 years, we've had a lot of overnight events.
Yeah, it doesn't always happen that way.
No.
But, with these storms moving through, as we increase that low-level jet, that provides enough energy and lift to help propagate those storms through here. So it just happens to be the pattern that we are in. It's not always like that. A lot of times it's summertime popcorn thunderstorms that pop up. But this time of the year in particular, as we start to fight the seasons with clashing air masses, this is not all that abnormal.
We need a lot of humidity to get an overnight severe weather event going. And unfortunately, that's what we have faced during some of these setups here, much like the one overnight tonight.
All right, we're coming up at 9:03. We'll hang with you for just a few more minutes here.
Hello. Reed.
Watching Reed. Talking about Reed Timmer, the storm chaser. Last check. So, he went to Texas. And earlier today, he was trying to decide whether he was going to go to northern parts of Missouri or Oklahoma. And he said, I'm going where we have the strong inflow of wind into the southern part. And as we know, because we've storm chased a number of
Yep.
times. You want to be on the southern flank of where the energy is, because that's where it's captured the most, and that's where you have the greatest potential, not only to chase it, but to see it better.
Exactly. And for a safe storm chase, you want to have good visibility there. And unfortunately, the visibility in parts of Missouri and around here is not great. You've got more trees and, of course, rain wrapping. So high precipitation storms wrap the tornadoes in rain, and that's super unsafe.
Let's see. Carmen.
Oh, yes. We're driving from Memphis to Louisville in the morning. What time should we try to make it to Louisville home to be safe? Whew. That's a good question here, because it's the problem is that we've got the storms moving through Louisville, between 5, 6, 7 a.m.
Yeah, to beat them, you'd have to leave within the next few hours,
Right.
or wait until they're gone.
So it's going to be tough to avoid them completely. At some point, you're probably going to have to pierce through those things. That's a good question, but a tough one to answer.
Some people always like to put a quantitative number on things, and boy, this is tough. Joyce is saying, how would you compare round 2 for tomorrow to March the 2nd, 2012? Of course, that was the Henryville day. We can't compare that. The data doesn't really line up like it did back then. But there is the potential that if we can destabilize tomorrow, that we could have some long track tornadoes tomorrow afternoon. It's possible.
Yes.
Is it a guarantee? No, but it's more likely if we see that sun tomorrow morning. I know that.
And that's something to hang on to here is this is not a guarantee that everybody's going to see tornadoes or there's going to be tons of tornadoes. This is a decent potential we're tracking. All right. So keep that in mind. If this is stressing you out, just keep up with this. All right. But try not to stress about it if you can. I know that's easier said than done.
All right. A lot of folks hear us talk about severe weather, and Donald's one of those. You oftentimes talk about having high CAPE values in the atmosphere. What is the CAPE for tonight and tomorrow night? And then ends by saying thank you. CAPE, for those watching, is convective available potential energy. It means if we can lift a parcel in the atmosphere to where it will take off, so where it will start to grow on its own, so to speak. What does that energy bounded look like from the lifted condensation level to the equilibrium level? What is that value? And through the year, it's different. During daytime and nighttime, it's different. So our CAPE values overnight, I pulled those up a second ago. We're running at like, what, 12 to 1,500?
Yeah, they were in the low thousands there. So low to mid thousands, which is for an overnight event.
Yeah.
I mean, that's actually pretty sizable. And then tomorrow, I was looking at I believe it was the HER, don't quote me on it. I think it was like at least 2,200. So it was pretty high tomorrow if we can get it to destabilize that much. Just because a model says 2,200 doesn't mean we'll actually get 2,200, because there's a lot that has to happen between now and then to get to that point. And a lot of things, micro things, can go wrong to cause that not to be the exact value.
Right. Sarah's asking, where's round 2 coming from direction-wise? So let's explain on the map tonight, maybe circle round 1, and then we'll walk through it. So round 1 is this cluster that you see billowing out across parts of Missouri, Illinois. That's going to move eastward, all right? So as the warm front is lined up to our north, the area of low pressure is not far from, let's just say, Kansas City. Cold front drapes in behind that. That's round 1. That will move in, mainly affecting southern Indiana, but then drifting to the south. Round 2 comes closer to the front, and that's what we're looking at out toward Oklahoma. And Ryan and his creative drawing ability.
That was the nicest
that was
2
nice.
I've ever made in this weather graphic system in 11 years, by the way.
The 1 questionable,
That
the
was
2,
not
which
great.
is the hardest number to draw, excellent.
A+, right? But yeah, that's out to our west. That's going to be the cold front. And because there's a front pushing this through tomorrow, we're going to see something out of this in the afternoon. It just depends on where it lights off to our west, along 65, or east of it. We'll see how that unfolds. Nonetheless, pretty decent severe weather chance with round number 2.
All right. Andrew's asking, will this be available on the app afterwards? He has missed viewing it. It will certainly be on our social streams.
Yes, it will be available on YouTube as well.
Which is where he is.
Yep. So, Wave Louisville, just type that into YouTube. You'll find our Wave YouTube channel, and this broadcast will be available. You can scrub through all 1 hour and 10 minutes of it or whatever and rewatch whatever you need to.
All right. Mike is asking, hey, Kevin, do you still keep in touch with Tom Wills? I remember him announcing Jefferson County closings during the winter many years ago. Fact is, Tom was just here last week. We had a chance to do a sit-down interview about 1974. I do see Tom quite often. Well, often comparatively.
Yeah.
He pops in and out, and I still see John too quite often. Talk to him frequently. So you're going to hear Tom's take on 1974 on Wednesday, which is the 50th anniversary of that terrible day. For the super outbreak.
He's so full of good, information that a lot of folks may not remember or think about during that event. Kevin talked about the F6 rating on one of those tornadoes. I didn't even realize that Dr. Ted Fujita had gone way past F5 in his rating scale, and then they pared it back to F0 through F5 eventually, and then re-rated some of those tornadoes that were F6. That's incredible.
Well, and in fact, Dr. Greg Forbes is going to be in town. Many people will recognize his name from the Weather Channel, but he worked under Ted Fujita, Dr. Ted Fujita, from the University of Chicago.
Yeah.
And he was one to survey the damage in Louisville. So he's going to be here Wednesday morning for the remembrance at the Metro Council or Metro Hall.
Yeah.
And then we'll go up to Hanover that evening to give a talk. So Brian's going to talk with Dr. Forbes on Wednesday, and we'll have that as well, barring anything crazy happening tomorrow.
Yeah, we're lucky to have so many folks around who still remember all of this and give us insight into what happened that day in 1974.
All right, let's see. A few more questions, and then we're going to jump off so we can get the next round of data.
1,600 people on our social streams right now, and that shows the amount of interest in this amount of severe weather that we're going to see overnight and tomorrow. So thank you guys for viewing.
All right, here's David asking, how do we continue to stay in the know in the middle of the night? Radio or notification alerts? One way is the Wave Weather app. That goes off. I know it can be problematic for some folks. If you have your, and I was looking this up for a person earlier, but if you have your phone set to
Do not disturb mode.
Yeah,
that's for an iPhone.
Shows the little moon. Make sure you have certain apps to go through that. Otherwise, at a certain time, if you're bedtime and you're like, okay, I'm going to set that every night, or turn that feature off for the overnight hours tonight. But make sure you can get that. But you can allow certain people to call, certain apps to still notify you if you are in that do not disturb mode. A quick Google search will show you how to do that. But I think everybody should have a NOAA weather radio. I mean, there's no reason in this day and age, because they're programmable for your county. So, I remember back 30, 40 years ago, the radio would go off for anything that the antenna would pick up. Right. And it was just obnoxious and very frustrating. And you'd put the thing in a drawer and be like, forget it. It's not worth this. But in today's day and age, you can program it for your county, program it in a county or two out to the west of you, and know when those alerts are coming in. You can set it for just tornado warnings. You can set it for whatever alerts you want. So there's no reason, if that is the reason, because it's bothersome, that you should not have one.
And one thing about the NOAA weather radios, Dawn G actually asked me a really good question. She says, my weather radio hasn't gone off in a long time. Am I good? And my answer to that is just make sure that when you press the radio on-off button on there, you can hear that automated voice giving the forecast or warnings or information. That means your weather radio is receiving it. I don't think my weather radio at my house has gone off since April-ish of last year, because it's only set for Jefferson County and only for tornado warnings. So it's okay if you haven't heard it in a while.
That's all you have yours set for?
Just that one, yeah.
Mine goes off all the time.
My phone goes off for a whole lot more.
Mine sounds like, you walk in my house, like, oh, it's just a weather alarm again.
Oh, well, you get
I like to know. No, I got to know what's happening. Oh, flash flood advisory? I want to know.
Everybody's a little different on that, I guess.
All right, here's Angela asking about the possibility of a PDS being issued tomorrow. PDS would be a watch that comes with that tag. It stands for particularly dangerous situation. And who knows? I haven't even paid attention to the language on the watches out to our west tonight as to if they are PDSs. It doesn't really matter, I don't think, in a scenario like this, because what we know is that the data points to, and especially when the new outlooks from the storm prediction come out, if we're in that hatched area of seeing something greater than an EF2,
yes.
What difference does it make, right?
It only takes one, as they say, too. So even if it's not a PDS or not even a hatch 10%, as we saw back in Milton, Kentucky and Madison, just a few weeks ago, It only takes one.
Well, that was one on a marginal risk day.
And that's exactly why I bring that up. That wasn't supposed to be a big deal. And guess what? For those folks,
it was a big deal. Yeah. So sometimes we get caught up in, it was only a marginal risk. I can't believe we had that. We were in a moderate risk. That was supposed to happen in Ohio, not here. Well, those, just meant to give some guidance. It's not meant to be taken with gospel. Just because Ohio is pinpointed doesn't mean that things won't change just a little bit. And we're close enough to say, hey, let's just be weather aware tomorrow. Let's check back in frequently. Let's see where we are. Let's just be comfortable with rolling through the process of the day.
That's a good point. We don't want to argue over semantics when we have lives to save around here. That's for sure.
Okay, so then on that note, Amanda says, well, where can I get one of these weather radios? So Kroger used to sell them. I haven't seen them lately, but I haven't looked for them lately, to be honest. Obviously, you can get them online. It's not going to help you for tonight, probably.
Hardware stores, I think they still carry them. I've seen them there lately.
Walgreens.
Yes, drug stores, big box stores, either the blue or the red one, whichever you go to.
Yep.
They're there as well. If you look hard enough, you will find them. They are available for sale. They're not very expensive either, $20, $30, $40, but it's a very good investment for your family's safety. We call them a smoke detector for storms because they're literally just that.
All right. Some folks asking about schools, saying, and who knows? I haven't been in the newsroom, so I don't know anything about schools tonight.
We don't control the school closings or whatever around here.
No, just offer advice on occasion when they call. Let's see. I'm scrolling through. A lot of thank yous, a lot of people wanting to know specific locations, but we can't get into all of those mainly because we just don't know, and secondly because we'd be here till the storm's past us.
We have so many comments. Thank you all for being on this evening, by the way, and thank you for commenting. We really appreciate it.
So Danielle says, will we have a watch tomorrow? Well, I think it's pretty likely. I think we're going to have one before the night is up tonight, and I think we very well could have one tomorrow. Again, dependent on how the atmosphere resets. The greatest chance tomorrow along and east of I-65 during the afternoon hours. That's what it looks like tomorrow from what we're looking at developing tonight.
Yeah, and don't get confused on these watches here. If you see a watch and it's like just to your north, don't think that you're in the clear. It could get extended to your south here.
Yeah, and Jeremy's saying thank you for explaining. You're welcome, and we just appreciate everybody jumping on here. Hopefully, we've been a little bit of a help. We'll do this. Brian's going to do another one of these tomorrow morning about 9:30. So we'll be on at 11 o'clock tonight. Back on overnight if we need to be, and maybe just watching it. Maybe we jump on, just after midnight. I'll be here, so maybe we'll pop on and just give you an update of what's happening out to the west of us if you find that helpful. Brian's back on. Of course, we have sunrise in between that, so Tawana's here for that. Brian's back on here from this studio at 9:30. Back on for midday at 11 a.m. Then we're back in this room at 12:30. And then, of course, we'll be in the swing of the afternoon. And if something's going to happen, it would happen during that time, and we'll be on the air if we need to be.
Yeah. So we're going to make sure that you're covered, here on Wave Weather Now. A lot of folks are asking on our Facebook page, hey, when are you live? Why aren't you live? We are live on Wave Weather Now when we're live. So make sure that you have that bookmarked, or you go to your smart TV app, which is Wave Now.
And Ryan, what is Wave Weather Now?
Wave Weather Now is Louisville's only 24/7 weather live stream dedicated to Louisville and our 33 surrounding counties. And the cool part about it is when we're not on here, you can see live radar, live warnings. In fact, right now, once we pop off of here, you'll see the severe thunderstorm watch on the bottom of it, and all of these very helpful graphics. We have storm reports on there. We have reports from viewers like you via the MPing app. There's so much rich information in there that you can just kind of have it on in the background. We'll pop on there when we need to be, but it's almost kind of like a babysitter for storms, because you can just keep it on and it'll keep you calm.
We just call it as a hub of all things weather. Mm-hmm. It's sort of our Facebook page is like that for people that are online. This is something that you can keep on if you're online line on our app. Watch Now, Wave Weather Now is the place. It's a nice thing to have in the background. You get frequent radar updates. You can track the storms coming in. And then obviously when we're jumping on, that means we're live. Anytime you see us on that channel, it's live. So you don't have to be like, oh, well, that's recorded. That's so old.
We don't do recording on there.
It's all live. It's all up to date. And it's just all for your benefit. So you can watch and track those storms, sort of like a little hug from us to say, hey, we're watching it for you. We're here.
So all of our newscasts are on the live streams. So go to our website, go to our weather app, go to Wave Now on your smart TV app. That's where we're live, just to make sure that folks don't miss us. We're not always live during our newscasts on Facebook or YouTube or things like that. So make sure you get the apps.
All right, it's 9:20. We're going to say goodbye for now. We'll see you back on Wave 3 News at 11 o'clock, and we hope that you've enjoyed what we've had to say tonight, and we'll be back as needed over the course of the next 24 hours. So have a good night, everybody.
Stay safe.